Welcome, empowered investors. I know we've been away for a little while, but we're happy to be back with you. Our event, Empowered Investor Live in Orlando, Florida, just kept us busy for a while. Ashley's been a little busy with a wedding she's been running and planning for her cousin, and family reunion and all kinds of stuff. So we're glad to be back with you. It's been a few weeks, Ashley.
It has. So great to be back, and welcome everybody. Welcome to the live stream. Thanks for joining us, and welcome to your host extraordinaire, Jason Hartman, who just ran an incredible event in Orlando for his empowered investors. And you don't want to miss these events, ladies and gentlemen.
You do not want to miss them.
Yes,
Yeah, you're right. You know, I'm looking at the evaluations here, and wow, just the comments, and we did them both on paper and electronically, and just such great comments. So thank you to all of you who attended our event. And Ashley's right. Do not miss our live events. I must say, they really are awesome.
I think you're a little biased, perhaps.
Yeah, no, you know what? I'm not, because I'm simply reading the empirical data. Okay, empirical data. Look at those reviews. Look at these nice comments people make. They love them. And for 18 years, I've been running live events, and I think I've done about 140 events now, and people just have always raved about them. So look, it's one thing we do really well is live conferences. So join us for those. And you know what? During the deepest, darkest days of Quarantineville last year, we ran some pretty good Zoom events too. So don't miss those either. Yeah.
Also, yeah.
Ashley,
it's a new world out there on Zoom.
Let me see your sleeve. What's up your sleeve today?
Well, this has been, of course, as always, another very eventful week in the news. Never a dull moment. We have Congress looking to pass their $3.5 trillion spending bill, fighting over that nonstop. We have Chinese giant Evergrande on the verge of collapse. Aren't these companies just too big to fail? We've also got China banning crypto and all crypto related activities, which just kind of blows my mind. Then we also have still FedEx struggling to deliver your packages because of a labor shortage.
Yeah.
And we have the Germans going to the polls to elect a new chancellor after 16 years of Angela Merkel at the helm. And we have the most important news of the week. What is it?
I don't know. I don't know what you're going to say.
On Friday, in a news statement.
Is that my birthday?
No, that will be next week.
I don't even know what it is. We ought to announce the birthday contest today, right here, I think.
We can. We certainly can.
Actually, well, we can only partially announce it because, I got it. I got that under control, but yeah.
Well, that's just a little teaser that there's a nice contest coming up. But the most important news of the week is that Elon Musk is now single again.
Oh, yes, that's true.
That is very important news.
That guy goes through wives pretty quickly.
Well, he's got, he's very busy. So
like he gets one, pops out a few kids, and then gets a new one. Boy, I tell you, it's like, I think that's shorter than the leases on most Teslas.
Ouch.
Just saying. But yeah, it's a couple of the news items you mentioned. Angela Merkel, she's been running Germany for 16 years. That has been a long, long run. And thankfully in the US, we don't allow such long runs, but we do in Congress. And that's unfortunate. We need term limits, people. We need term limits because politics in America was never meant to be a career. It was always meant to be something you do to serve, and then you go back to running your business. You go back to your constituency. You go back to your hometown and become a citizen again. That's what it was supposed to be. That's what the founding fathers meant. Just, read the Federalist Papers, read all of this stuff. And they never meant politics to be a career, but unfortunately and sadly, that's the way it's become in the U.S. And then you mentioned FedEx, which was also interesting. And by the way, a lot of our investors who've invested in Memphis with us over the years, and including myself, had several Memphis properties. I did do 1031 exchanges on them, or actually, I'm still in one of those, and have just done very well in Memphis. That's the logistics capital of the U.S. I mean, I think that's a fair way to say it. And I don't know if you saw this in the news, Ashley, and it shows you how taxpayers subsidize the ultra wealthy and these mega corporations, especially the disgusting big tech companies. Amazon is poaching school bus drivers. Did you see that one yet?
I did not. No.
Well, guess what? Right here in Palm Beach, Florida, where I live, okay? And you'll see this article. It's in one of your newsletters, and I know you subscribe to this one, Ashley. So I know you're going to see it. Amazon needs delivery people and obviously warehouse staff, and so they are outbidding the school districts and the private contractors for school districts and poaching all the school bus drivers. So there's this huge school bus driver shortage, not only here, but in other parts of the country. And basically, what's happening here, if you think about it, is the school districts and the contractors that contract with school districts to run school buses. It's different. Sometimes the school buses and the drivers are directly employed by the district, and the buses are owned by the district. Sometimes they use outside contractors. It varies. But in either case, they will now have to pay more to compete with a private company. And so who's going to pay for that? Well, the taxpayers, and every citizen is going to pay for it through inflation indirectly, because when government spending increases, more inflationary pressure exists in the system, and that's just the way it is. So taxpayers, they've accused Walmart of this for years, and I'm not saying it's not untrue, but how is it that these tech companies get a pass? It is absolutely ridiculous that they get a pass. Where are, and it all goes down to politics. If you look at Starbucks, that is a liberal company. If you look at Jeff Bezos and Amazon, that is a liberal, a liberal vibe out of them, right? And so they're never attacked. Starbucks has poisoned the population far worse than McDonald's ever has. And yet they get a pass for poisoning the population. Big tech companies get a pass on censorship, on invasion of privacy, on everything, on these abusive labor practices that Amazon engages in. But Walmart doesn't get a pass, right? It's just absolutely ridiculous how they've attacked McDonald's, they've attacked Walmart, but they let Starbucks and Amazon have a pass for no reason whatsoever. So yeah, it's unbelievable. They blamed McDonald's for burdening the healthcare system by making people sick with obesity and diabetes, but Starbucks, just no one ever complains for some odd reason. It's ridiculous.
And the common man certainly doesn't get a pass. I mean, now they're going to surveil your bank accounts for transactions of $600 and above. That's everybody.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Banking has become so incredibly difficult in this country and around the world if you're an American. Because if you're an American, you are wearing a scarlet letter, and no bank around the world wants to do business with you. And in America, you are put through the ringer. Yet all these big companies can afford the cost of compliance because they have a whole army of lawyers and accountants to deal with this crap. Yet the small business person, they don't have that advantage. So once again, we see all sorts of varying not diversions, but versions of financial repression. And this is one of many here. But hey, let's go into some specifics and look at what you have for today, Ashley.
Sure.
I'm going to add your screen. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, we can start here. This is a question, I think, from two or 3 weeks ago from our last live stream that we didn't get to, and it's complex, but I think that this is a really interesting one. So Michael Schmitz writes, hello, I heard Jason talking on his most recent podcast about savers and borrowers since 1971. He did mention a technique of using a 10-year interest only loan 5 times and would still be better off doing that since 1971. My question is,
I mentioned it
in
5 times. You're counting.
my question is, in what way did he mean? Using a 10-year interest only loan and refinancing that loan 5 times? I'm curious as to what way mathematically that would be best utilized over the course of 20, 30, or even 40 years. I do understand about cash out refinancing, but that concept he mentioned really piqued my interest in learning. Thank you. Well, thanks for that question, Michael.
Yeah, Michael, it's a good question, and I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to. And here's what I mean. Of course, I teach two major strategies. One that you alluded to, which is refi till you die. That strategy I've been teaching for about 18 years. And then also for the same 18 years or so, inflation induced debt destruction. And uh, the inflation induced debt destruction strategy, one of the really short and easy ways for me to explain it is by using a version where you would use an interest only loan. Now, interest only loans are less available than they used to be because post Great Recession and with the Dodd Frank legislation and so forth, they did attack some of this stuff and just increase the regulations, right? So the reason it's easiest to teach inflation induced debt destruction by using the example of a 10-year interest only loan is simply this. Think about it this way. When you take out the amortized loan, meaning you're paying principal and interest, and that derives from the Latin word amort, and amort means to kill. So you're killing the mortgage by paying principal and interest at the same time. That's the way a typical mortgage is set up, or an auto loan, or almost every loan is amortized interest and principal each month. However, when you use an interest only loan, it makes the example really really simple, because think of it this way: if you get a an interest only loan, and say it's a 30-year, the most likely scenario of that would be it's a 30-year loan, but there's an initial period that's interest only. And so the longest I've ever seen is a 10-year interest only. Nowadays, that might even be hard to come by. It might be 5 years at the longest, but you have to check with the lenders because this stuff is dynamic and it's always changing. The example, though, 2021, you get this 10-year interest only loan. And for round figures, let's say it's let's say it's $100,000 loan. And over the course of that 10 years, you're borrowing the money in today's dollars. So that's the present value. You get today's value of the dollars. And as inflation occurs, the value of those dollars is debased, or it declines over time. So you get to pay back the loan in cheaper dollars through inflation induced debt destruction, my trademark strategy. But just very simply, you'd have to look at this on the payment each month, because that is debased through inflation, but
Mhm.
so is the principal balance. So you started with a $100,000 loan in that example. And then as time passes, it's 2022, 23, 24, 25, and the value of your dollars keeps declining. But the first mortgage statement you got says you owe $100,000, and that's in nominal dollars, the name of it. It's $100,000. But in real dollars, over time, the value of that $100,000 that you owe declines. So, say over the course of 10 years, you have a combined inflation of 40%. And that'll vary each year. But remember, inflation compounds just like interest, because as the inflation occurs, it's compounding on the prior year's inflation. So Einstein said compounding interest is one of the eighth wonders of the world, or is the eighth wonder of the world. And he was right, because it's amazing how quickly it happens. And, it reminds me of just a short tangent on goals. Most people in their life overestimate what they can do in 1 year, and they underestimate what they can do in 5 years. And that is so true, and that's because of the compounding effect. By the way, there's a book on that topic, called The Compound Effect or The Compounding Effect, which is pretty interesting. And so over the course of 10 years, let's say you have a total rate of 40% inflation. Now, I actually think it would be quite a bit higher because I think the real rate of inflation just now in our current environment is 10 to 12% real rate. The CPI, the Consumer Price Index, massively understated and manipulated, and the government has very good reasons for doing that. So, so you're going to get a mortgage statement in 10 years that still says you owe $100,000, but the value of that $100,000 has been debased through inflation. So the real value of it is only $60,000 in my example because you've had 40% inflation.
Mhm.
So then you have one lump sum principal payment in that example of 60,000 of real dollar value of $60,000, nominal value of $100,000. So you have benefited hugely from inflation induced debt destruction, not to mention the interest only payments on that loan over time have also been debased.
Mhm.
So, for example, if you're paying, I don't know, $500 a month in interest only payments, at first it really feels like $500 because there's been no inflation. But at the end, it feels a lot lower and a lot less burdensome because of inflation induced debt destruction. So I don't know about the specific example I used, Michael, that you're basing that question on, but you combine the beauty of inflation-induced debt destruction with the refi till you die plan, and the reason you like refi till you die is that you're constantly equity stripping your properties, and over time you are pulling that money out. And remember, there's no tax on borrowed money, so you're getting a lump sum of money on every refinance cycle, and you don't pay any tax on it. And you use that to reinvest and buy more properties or just use it to live on. It's up to
Mhm.
you. But there's no tax because it's borrowed money. And that's the way the rich get so rich. They borrow money against their real estate, they borrow money against their stock portfolios, they borrow money against their IRA, they borrow money against insurance policies, they borrow money against their businesses, and there's no tax on the borrowed money. Remember, you generally don't want to sell assets. You want to keep your assets and keep them working for you. When you sell them, except for beautiful income property, because then you can do a 1031 tax deferred exchange and not pay tax. But all the other assets, pretty much, you're going to sell it and you're going to pay capital gains tax, which
Mhm.
Joe Biden wants to increase quite dramatically. So I hope that helps that answer.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, we do have some questions in our chat. So thanks for commenting, everyone.
Ashley, before we take any questions and comments, what do we want to ask them to do?
Hit the like button and
Thank you.
subscribe.
Yeah. So we know you're watching. We know you're listening. Give us a like. Come on, folks. You're here. Just click the like button for us. It helps with the algorithm that rules the world. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Our lives are now ruled by algorithms.
True. Yes, they
Seriously,
are.
we're not in control of anything.
By the way, speaking of which, another interesting book, and I forget the title, but I read this book about 5, 6 years ago about how algorithms rule the world.
Mhm.
And it's amazing how many places these algorithms impact our lives. It's shocking and scary. And soon it will be AI combined with algorithms. Well, it already is to some extent.
Yeah, it is shocking, and it's shocking that it all happens in a way we don't even realize. Sometimes
Yeah.
we have no idea that we're being influenced by an algorithm.
True, true.
Every corner of our lives. Okay, so going back to, we have Jonathan Escobar 1106.
That
Jonathan
is-
says, yes, thank you for your question, Jonathan. I watched one of your live streams and you said that if prices go down 10% and the interest rates go up 1%, then your monthly payment will still be higher. And right below that, he writes, what about property taxes, insurance, PMI, if house hacking?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I didn't say the payment would still be higher. I said it would be about the same. And this is approximate. It's just a quick rule of thumb. But basically, every 1% in interest rate is approximately equivalent to 10% in price. And of course, price, which is a nominal thing in almost every case, not a real thing, meaning that you're talking about nominal dollars when you're talking about price. Price, uh, what influences your insurance rates and your property taxes. So these things aren't always equal. It's complicated, as the saying goes. And I'm just talking about the principal and interest mortgage payment, 1% being equal to about 10% in price. And this is why all of the market timers, usually things just don't work out for them. For this reason, because why would prices decline? Well, they'd likely decline because of higher interest rates, uh, putting compression on housing affordability. And when that compression occurs, you see prices soften, but it softens because affordability declines. And why does affordability decline? Well, because rates go up. And so you're usually not benefiting from this sort of market timing by any means. But even worse, I've never really met anybody that can accurately predict the market cycles.
Mhm.
So, good luck market timing. The people that do best in any investment, it doesn't have to be just real estate, it could be stocks, bonds, cryptocurrency, any asset, are the people who just continually and consistently invest. They basically dollar cost average into the market. And, sometimes you do better, sometimes you do worse, but you're in the market. And over the long term, I mean, this has been empirically proven over and over again. There are a zillion studies on this, folks. You're going to do better than trying to time the market. Timing the market, generally speaking, is a fool's errand.
So what about, so we have Judy McKee, 1123. Judy McKee brings up a great point, and I think that has deterred a lot of people from investing or getting started. She says, "I am afraid of being overextended. That is why I'm not comfortable with debt." So how do you overcome this hurdle?
Yeah, good question, Judy. So, what I would ask you is, are you concerned about your debt or debt that's in your name that you have delegated the responsibility of repayment to somebody else called a tenant or a renter? See, that's what we do with income property. We don't pay our own debts. Renters pay our debts for us. And ideally, they give us a tip every month called positive cash flow. maybe $200 extra
The nice
every
way
month
to
for
put
us,
it.
right? So it's a great deal. It's basically a leveraged buyout. And I've talked about this many times before, so I won't go into the details of it. But in the 80s, we started to hear the term leveraged buyout with all these big corporate raiders, Carl Icahn, T. Boone Pickens, and what they would do is they would buy a company, saddle it with big debts, and use the company's income to repay the debts. That's exactly the type of thing we're doing with income property. It does the same thing. It's an absolutely beautiful thing because we don't pay our own debts. Now, if you have your own debts, Judy, car payments, student loans, credit cards, get rid of those as quickly as you can. That's bad debt. It's consumer debt, and you don't want it. And even debt on your own house, although you do get inflation induced debt destruction, you don't want to live beyond your means when it comes to your own home and get over indebted because you've got to pay that debt yourself. No tenant is paying it for you.
Lucas X asks, "Can you comment on the Evergrande case?"
Yeah. Okay. So that's 1126. That's the one, right? I have taken deep dives into this one, and they're calling it China's Lehman Brothers moment. I talked about it on the podcast the other day, but mostly, here's the one of the many problems with the media. I was going to say, here's the problem with the media. No, it's one of many problems with the media. So one problem is, you know, because everybody's trying to just fill the news cycle, they're all commenting on all this stuff too early. This is it's like sitting there when, when there's a hurricane, for example, right? And, the commentators are sitting there, or the election, right? When the election results are coming in, and, no one really knows anything yet. It's too early to tell. There used to be this weatherman on TV, and he used the phrase TETT, too early to tell, right? And that's true of this. Everybody's got an opinion, everybody's commenting, everybody's trying to get clicks with clickbait. And, the reality is nobody knows. Nobody knows. Will the Chinese government bail them out? I don't know. Uh, everything's just kind of a guess at this point. It is a pretty big deal. They've got hundreds of billions of dollars in debt. They're holding deposits from, I don't know, maybe hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Chinese citizens for properties that they're developing. And this will be a disaster, definitely, for China. Will it have contagion to the US and the rest of the world? Remains to be seen. The old saying, when China sneezes, everybody else gets a cold, or vice versa. Will that be true? We don't know yet. Nobody knows. It's just, and that's what kind of drives me crazy about the media. You can go watch video after video on YouTube and read story after story in the Wall Street Journal, and the reality is everybody's just speculating at this point. We don't know. Everybody wants to know first. And I don't know. I think it'll certainly be problematic for China. I don't think it'll be hugely problematic for us in the US. But is it, the other thing is it symptomatic of a domino? Are there a bunch of other companies that are in the same situation? And once again, nobody knows. Now, interesting. We got a, oh no, that was on Judy's comment. I was looking for a response from one of our viewers. So yeah, I just can't say a whole bunch about that. But if you have a more specific question, please feel free to post it. But I just think it's TETT.
Sure.
Too early to tell.
Yeah, certainly. It's funny. I heard someone say recently, watching the news is like watching WWF wrestling. You might enjoy it, but you just have to know that it's made up.
Yeah, it's definitely fake news. There's no question about it.
Writers,
yeah,
writing the news.
Yeah. They're entertainers, and that this is after what happened with the and I'm not going to say the exact word. I'm going to say the erection. Okay, several months ago, nobody trusts the media anymore. And after what's happened with, like, Anthony, his last name, the guy who's been on TV a lot, I'm not going to say his last name, starts with an F. And, this whole stuff with the thing everybody wants people to inject in their body. I won't even say the name of it because I'll be censored. And the cerveza sickness, right? Nobody trusts the media anymore. The media and the big tech companies cannot be trusted. It's just an absolute scam. And I think they've shot themselves in the foot, because intelligent people in the US and around the world, they just know that they cannot be trusted. They have zero credibility. Zero.
Mm-hmm.
It's entertainment. That's what we're watching. And probably the most accurate information you're ever going to get is from alternative media like this right here. But listen, I don't want to compliment ourselves too much. There are better sources than us, because we're not really reporters as much as we are commentators on investing strategies and so forth. But there's a lot of good ones out there. One that I'd recommend is Ben Swan, who, by the way, just started a social media network called Sovereign, and it's spelled oddly. I don't have the exact spelling, but they've already been deplatformed by this place where you're probably watching us now. So, yeah, you just can't trust any of them anymore. So it's
we should just have Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan giving us the news. Who wouldn't love that? That'd be a great. I would watch that.
And that's what wrestling is. It's a show, and that's what the news is. It's a show too. Yeah.
Let's go to one of my slides. There's some interesting things happening this week. So a report.
Presentation mode.
Yeah, there it is. Yes. So we've got a report from rentcafe.com, and also Housing Wire reported on this exact study. So the last 10 years, we are seeing some of the largest metro suburbs in the United States transitioning from homeowner dominated suburbs to renter dominated suburbs, which begs the question we've talked about many times: are we becoming a renter nation? And why are they becoming heavier in the renters, and as opposed to home buyers? And what's next?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I would add something to the question you posed, Ashley, and that is, if we are becoming a renter nation, here's the question: is it bad?
Hmm.
And the other part of that question is, compared to what? Okay. Uh, I have long said, much to the dismay of my colleagues in the real estate industry who have given me a lot of flack about this, but I'm going to say it again. The homeownership rate in America, I believe, should be around 50 to 55%. That is the accurate homeownership rate for the United States. It's a healthy rate, it's a good thing. Renting is not a bad thing. Uh, just make sure, if you are a renter, that you are invested in real estate. So own income property and rent your own home. Nothing wrong with that at all. Your home is a liability. Income properties that you own for investment are assets. Why is your home a liability? Because it costs you money every month. So, so own income property, but you can rent. Look, at renting gives you a lot more flexibility. As I have long said, the best thing anybody can have on a resume is mobility, the ability to move to where the jobs are. Now, granted, a lot of people can do remote work, but not everybody. And you want to have the flexibility of being able to move to politically friendly environments, to places where there is more job growth, to places where you have more freedom and don't have to wear face diapers, for example. Uh, there are a lot of ways our freedom is getting attacked, and we have political risk. Now, they used to only use that phrase, political risk, applying it to other countries when you're investing offshore. But thankfully, in the US, we have not a democracy, but a representative republic. That is the real model of our government. And we have something called states' rights. And because we have states' rights, states can act very differently. And according to Obama, there are 57 states. So you can take your pick. There's actually 50, but then you've got Washington, D.C., and God forbid that becomes a state, because that will really sway things and
Mm-hmm.
screw up the political process in the electoral college. And God forbid Puerto Rico becomes a state. We don't want either of these things to happen, but they might. So you've got 50 choices, and you can move around to where your freedom is most respected and where your money is most respected and where your opinions are most respected. And people are moving due to political risk in the United States. I'd say maybe more than ever in the nation's history. And they are voting with their feet. And renting allows you to more easily vote with your feet. So I don't think there's anything wrong with being a renter. Just make sure that you own income property as an investment, because it is the most historically proven asset class in the entire world. And it's the most tax favored asset class in the United States, where taxes are typically the largest expense in anybody's life. And it also, thankfully, is the most debt favored asset class in the United States. And I'm talking about friendly, good, high quality investment grade debt that makes us wealthy.
So vote with your feet and vote with your wallets as well.
And nothing wrong with renting, and the homeownership rate should decline. That would be a healthy thing. Every politician, like, go back to George Bush, who was really big on it. And he pushed the homeownership rate up to like 69% during his administration.
Mhm.
And what did we have? We had the Great Recession come out of it, right? Not everybody should own a home. Not everybody wants to own a home. It's
Certainly.
okay.
Mhm.
55% uh, ownership rate is probably perfect, according to Jason Hartman. So nothing wrong with renting. Just make sure you're in the game by owning investment property at the same time. Good points, Ashley. Glad you brought that up.
Believe in Yourself wrote, I have chosen the state of tranquility. You said there were 50 states, you can choose one. And Believe in Yourself wrote, I have chosen the state of
Hey, by the
tranquility.
way, give me numbers with those, Ashley.
Yeah, 1137.
Okay.
Very nice. Yes.
Good comment.
Good choice.
Tranquility. I like it.
Great choice, actually. That's a good choice for all of us, actually.
Hey, All Nighter Hider is here. Good to see you again. It's been a while. Bonjour.
Yes, welcome everyone. Leave some questions, some comments if you haven't already. Let us know where you are tuning in from, and let's address a couple more questions. Here we are. Okay, so we have on our presentation on our slides.
Got it. There we go.
So Adam Wright, was housing expensive when compared to other commodities when the bubble popped in 2008?
Well, that is a great question. And you know what I will do? We used to originally we did the Hartman comparison index by 5-year increments.
Mhm.
And then we wanted to go back further, and it was just too much data. So we did it by 10-year increments. So I don't have that data in front of me but I will share, and I'm just looking for a slide, Ashley. So
Sure.
find me some time if you
Sure,
would.
sure. It sounds like a job for the Hartman Comparison Index.
It is
It
absolutely.
sounds like the perfect job for your brand new index, which historically compares housing prices to other commodities and services as well.
And you know what? I'm going to share my screen. I'm not sure if that will kick yours off or what it's going to do when I do that, but let me just share my screen. Okay. There we go. Hey, that
There it
worked
is.
really well. Hey, by the way, Ashley, I'm curious, tech question. Did you unshare for me to put mine up,
No,
or
I did
mine?
not.
Okay. Mine overrode yours. Now I know how it works. Okay, good. Okay, cool. So here, and again, these are 10-year increments. So I'm sorry I can't break it down to the exact time of the Great Recession right now. But it does give you some guidance here. And I want you to look at the mortgage payment, the mortgage payment on the median price house in shares of the S&P 500 index. So that's very telling because you're using all of the pricing data in pretty much I think the best index of the stock market, which is the S&P 500. I wouldn't go with the Dow. That's, I
Mhm.
think, largely outdated. Russell 2000, you could argue, might be even better, but we're going with S&P 500, right? And so back in 1970, if you wanted to pay your monthly mortgage payment, it would cost you 1.5 shares of the S&P to pay your mortgage payment. 10 years later, it would cost you 5.3. So that inflation of the 70s really hurt a lot of people. Housing got a lot more expensive. Okay. And interest rates were much higher. So that's one of the things that made housing so much more expensive. I didn't mean in price. We're
Mhm.
talking about the payment now, by the way. Just want to clarify that. By 1990, it was 2.4 shares of the S&P. By 2000, it was 0.7. By 2010, it was zero point 0.9. Now, remember, of course, what happened during the Great Recession. The stock market crashed, obviously, and it was a really bad crash. So the value of those shares declined a lot. And that gives you some idea in this 10-year area, right? And this isn't commodities, it's stock prices, but the S&P 500 is a commodity, I would argue. By 2020, much cheaper. only zero point 0.4 shares, and now only 0.3 shares of the S&P to pay your monthly mortgage payment. So pretty good. And if you look at hours worked at the average wage, you can see there how many hours did you need to work to pay your mortgage. Okay,
Mhm.
so in 2000 you needed to work 69 hours to pay your mortgage
Is that monthly or weekly?
monthly.
Monthly.
Yeah. So, you usually work 40 hours a week. And so, a month is 4.3 weeks. Really, everybody calls it four. But to just do rough math, say you'd work, you'd have 200 hours, or sorry, 160 hours a month of work. Well, 50 of those in 2010 was needed to pay your mortgage,
Mhm.
right? And then you'd have the other left over to pay taxes. Remember, that's before tax, of course.
Yes.
So taxes would take a big bite, and then you'd have other expenses. Uh, and by 2020, 48 hours, and now 46 hours.
Mhm.
So houses have gotten cheaper. In fact, my second favorite index used to be the Housing Affordability Index published by the National Association of Realtors, but now it is the RHPI, the Real House Price Index, published by First American Title. And according to them, in the last 20 years, the real price of houses is 26% cheaper than it was 20 years ago. So that's pretty good. But the problem with their index is it's only taking into account what initially spurred my creation of the HCI, the Hartman Comparison Index. It's only taking into account the mortgage payment versus inflation, and that's not enough data.
Mhm.
But it is good. It's a good index. I like their index, and I think it's very valid. I just think there's more to it than that. I think you really have to do the compared to what question and compare it to other things. Okay, so I'm going back to your screen now, Ashley.
Mhm. Okay. We have at 11:43, Andy S. Andy writes, I was at your conference 2 weeks ago. It was a fantastic time. I learned a lot. Everyone I talked to was so friendly, willing to answer questions and share experiences. Thanks.
Hey, thank you, Andy. I'm glad you enjoyed the conference, and thanks for coming out. And one more message to everybody: whenever we have a conference, be sure to attend. So, thank you, Andy. Yeah, it's those are just great events. We try to make them really fun, and of course, super super informative. So glad you got a lot out of it, and thank you for joining.
Mhm. Okay, so let's go to 1146 as well. We've got,
Ashley, we're moving
oh,
around here. Okay.
sorry, we are skipping, sorry. My fault. From Caption Harsh. Harsh reality that is not being discussed is that the developer violates your legal contract, raises prices, or backs out. Please discuss this as it is prevalent and real.
Yeah, yeah, caption. That's a good point. Developers are doing that all over the country. They've been doing it for a while now. They are defaulting on their obligation to sell you the home. Now, many of them have gotten wise and they've put in price escalation clauses, and of course, they have to obey the contract. So, as a buyer, I think the real question you're asking here is, what are my rights? So, I'm going to tell you. You can sue the developer if they do not have an escalation clause in that contract. You can sue them for what's called specific performance. So there are two basic types of lawsuits. You can either sue a company or an individual for damages, and most lawsuits are about damages. So, hey, you broke the contract, I was damaged, you have to compensate me for my damages, and plus maybe my attorney's fees, which, by the way, I will tell you, legal cases can turn on just the attorney's fees issue alone. Forget about the underlying damages. You've seen in movies, or hey, one other great show, by the way, Ashley. We're talking about how, by the way, folks, you know who Ashley looks like? Lucille Ball.
But
Don't
less,
you think?
yes.
Lucille Ball, pretty lady in her time. Yeah, definitely. And Ashley, striking resemblance. I'm amazed. You agree with that, by the way, Ashley, don't you?
Compliment, yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, yeah, you take it.
Comedic
Uh,
genius.
and almost as humorous.
Almost. No, I'm still
Almost.
working on that part. Yeah.
Not quite as slapstick as
No,
Lucille Ball was.
more
But,
dry. Yeah.
but you may have seen on another funny show, by the way, Ally McBeal,
Mm.
where, a case will happen and, the jury will award the plaintiff $1. So they didn't really wanna give them all the damages they were seeking, but the dollar gave them the right to try and collect all the attorney's fees, which could be millions of dollars. Okay? So just understand that. So you can sue the developer for specific performance. Two kinds of lawsuits: damages and specific performance. And in a specific performance lawsuit, you could also get damages or attorney's fees potentially as well. So that's where you go to court and you say to the judge, look, I'm not asking for damages. I'm just asking for the court to order the other party to perform on the contract, specific performance. And the court will say, you are ordered, home builder, to deed the property to the buyer because that's what you agreed to. You agreed to sell them the house, and the buyer upheld their end of the contract. They acted in good faith. They are a ready, willing, and able buyer at the terms agreed. And you have to uphold your part of the contract and sell them the property. So I am going to order you to convey the title of the property to the buyer, or I am literally going to convey the title for you. That's what a court can do. That's specific performance. Also, if the court doesn't do that or you don't sue for that, the other thing you can sue for is damages. And you can say, hey, look, that property, I was going to make $50,000 on that property. And because of the seller's default on the contract, I was deprived of the ability to make that $50,000 I would have made. So the court could say, okay, I'm going to give you the $50,000 potentially plus your attorney's fees, which could be $250,000. So $300,000 is awarded to the buyer. So you do have rights. You just got to read your contract carefully and get the advice of a good attorney, which I am not. I am not an attorney, and so get proper legal counsel.
Shall we take one more question from your fantastic audience members? Peter Wilson, 1149. Question: will the government be able to modify terms of real estate contracts financing soon, such as changing interest rates or length of mortgages?
That's interesting. During the Great Recession about 13 years ago, there was a lot of talk about activist judges who were disobeying the law, and they were simply awarding things in these cases where millions of people were in foreclosure, either because they couldn't afford their properties or they did what's called strategic defaults. They just chose to default on purpose. They could afford it, but they defaulted sometimes on the advice of the lender because it's the only way they could get a loan modification from the lender or a short sale or a workout. And so they defaulted on purpose strategically. And activist judges were getting in there when these would go to court. Some of these cases did. And they were doing all kinds of things like trying to rewrite mortgage contracts. Of course, this is illegal and they cannot legally do it. We have laws. We are a nation of laws. We have a constitution, and that protects personal property rights. And a mortgage is personal property, and so is the house, right? And so there are all kinds of issues in this. Could they do it? Will they do it? I doubt it in any big way. You're always going to hear of some activist judge that tried to do it. Hopefully, the parties appealed, and the appeals court overrode them, and didn't allow it. And hopefully, they got the judge kicked off the bench. Ideally, because you're not allowed to be an activist judge. The whole point of the judicial branch is it has to follow the law, right? That's the point. But
right.
Could it happen? I'm sure there'll be a case here and there.
Okay, so should we wrap it up?
Yeah, we gotta wrap it up a little earlier today, folks. I've got places to go and people to see, and Ashley probably does too. So we're gonna wrap it up earlier, but I wanted to say thanks to all of you who jumped on with us. We appreciate all your questions and comments. And oh, this is a good one, by the way. I just want to address this. So Brady says Hartman may need to compare it to rental cash flow. I assume you're talking about the HCI, the Hartman Comparison Index? Interesting.
Mhm.
Ashley, did you see any other comments about this in here? No, that's an interesting interesting idea. I'm not sure exactly what you mean, but if you have more thoughts on that, please go to jasonhartman.com/ask and elaborate on that, because Brady, that's a really interesting point you make, and I'd love to explore it further. Okay, so thank you for that. Ashley, you want to announce the birthday contest?
I do. I would love to. So somebody has a birthday coming up.
Yours truly. Yeah.
And you are a Libra. And
Yes, the best sign in the zodiac, by the way.
like 50 times, so I'll never forget it. You're very proud of the Libra, which is great.
Represent.
Yeah, so we are going to have a birthday challenge coming up, birthday contest coming up in your honor of your birthday month, coming up very shortly. And we'll have more details for you soon. But we are interested to know, what are you doing to tip the scales, the Libra scales, in your favor? So instead of making a birthday wish, we want you to take action. So what are you doing to augment, improve, deepen your financial education? What are you doing daily? What are you doing weekly? What are you doing monthly? So we are going to have all the details for you soon, and we'd love to know what you're doing. And
so here's the contest. Let's elaborate on this a little bit, if I may. So make a video, a short video, post it on YouTube, and tag me. Okay, so tag hashtag Jason Hartman, and post this video, and it could be about your real estate plans and goals, your income property investing plans and goals, your 5-year plan. We did one on that before. We got some great videos that many of you made. They were awesome, by the way. Loved hearing your 5-year plan. It might be your plan for investing, or it might be your plan to just continue your education, as Ashley alluded to. It could be anything you've learned from my podcast or YouTube videos, how I've helped you on your journey and our content has helped you. Anything about coming to our live events. We wanted to just leave this real broad, so you have lots of choices of what you could talk about on your video, but just a short video. It might be 3 to 5 minutes, no big deal, nothing formal. You don't have to do it in a studio or anything. It can be gritty, just real world stuff, and talk about your real estate experience so far, your investing experience, what techniques I've taught you over the years that you've used, your plans for the future, whatever. We're just going to leave this real open. So we're going to have 2 winners that'll win $500 each, so $500 each for the 2 biggest winners, and then we're going to have some nice prizes like Ring doorbells. Maybe we'll get another gadget or 2 in there, and you can choose from those. So submit these, put them on YouTube, and hashtag Jason Hartman, and be sure to use Jason Hartman in the title of your video as well, so we can find it. And then just send us the link. And by the way, we'll have a website where you can send it, or you can really just do it through jasonhartman.com/ask. We'll get the entry either way. Don't worry about it. And we will choose winners in early October. So hurry up and submit those videos. What else do we want to say? Oh, the winners will be chosen based on this criteria. Number 1, best videos. Now, that doesn't mean cinematically, but that's fine too. Make a great cinematic video, but you don't have to. So content. And then also whoever gets the most views on YouTube. So share it with your friends and get your view numbers up as well. So we're going to choose on a blend of these things, best videos, and then most views, and it'll kind of be a blend without an algorithm, a human algorithm. It'll be the Ashley 5000 algorithm.
Perfect. I
Yeah.
like that. Yes.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right. So I think that's it, right, Ashley?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank
And
you all for joining us. Thank you so much.
yeah. And of course, free book at pandemicinvesting.com. So go get your free book at pandemicinvesting.com. And thanks for joining us today. Happy investing, everybody.